Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Tuesday, the 15th of December, Joe Biden says it's time to turn the page after the United States Electoral College officially confirms him as the next president. Australian authorities issue evacuation orders in the state of New South Wales after days of heavy rain. And Cardinal Tagle shares his hopes for Christmas 2020. In the Vatican, I'm Lydia O'Kane. The United States Electoral College has officially confirmed Joe Biden as the next president as the nation crossed the threshold of 300,000 deaths from COVID-19. As Devin Watkins reports, President-elect Biden said it's time for America to turn the page.
America's 538 presidential electors cast their ballots on Monday, officially confirming Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. The Electoral College ratified his November 3rd victory over Donald Trump with a majority of 306 to 232. Mr. Biden will be sworn in as president on January 20th. Under the U.S. presidential election system, Americans cast ballot for electors, which are apportioned to each state according to population. Members of the Electoral College then vote for candidates after the election. Those ballots will now be sent to Washington, D.C. to be formally counted at a joint session of Congress on January 6th. At that point, the formal election of Joe Biden as president will be completed. President-elect Biden also won the popular vote by over 7 million ballots in an election with the highest voter turnout in 120 years. Later Monday evening, Mr. Biden urged the nation to turn the page and promised to be a president for all Americans. Once again in America, the rule of law, our Constitution, and the will of the people have prevailed, he said. Our democracy, pushed, tested, threatened, proved to be resilient, true, and strong. President-elect Biden said COVID-19 presents an urgent challenge. We have to get this pandemic under control and get the nation vaccinated against this virus. Confirmation of Mr. Biden's victory came on the same day the U.S. COVID-19 death toll topped 300,000. It was also the day 150 hospitals across the country received their first doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which has gotten approval for emergency use. President-elect Biden has set a goal of 100 million COVID vaccinations in his first 100 days in office. I'm Devin Watkins.
Australian authorities have issued evacuation orders in the state of New South Wales after days of heavy rain. Christopher Wells tells us more.
Australia's northeast coast was smashed by heavy rains, wild winds, and huge seas for the fifth straight day on Tuesday, forcing widespread evacuations. As water levels continue to rise due to heavy overnight rains shutting low-lying roads, New South Wales State Emergency Services directed hundreds of residents of several regional towns to move to safer places. The cyclonic conditions generated by an intense low-pressure system off the Queensland coast have swallowed beaches and submerged huge swaths of the heavily populated regions between New South Wales and Queensland state borders. Quiet seaside suburbs were battered by the storm, with high seas destroying some of the most famous beaches along the coast, including the main beach at popular tourist spot Byron Bay in southern NSW. Australia's Bureau of Meteorology said the heavy rains are expected to weaken by late Tuesday or early Wednesday, but warned isolated thunderstorms may still generate localized heavy rainfalls, triggering flash floods. Australia is passing through a summer expected to be dominated by the La Niña phenomenon, typically associated with greater rainfall and more tropical cyclones, a sharp contrast to the massive bushfires that razed the country last summer. We've been warned by the weather experts that La Niña will have an impact over summer in the eastern coast of Australia, so we need to expect the unexpected, NSW Premier Gladys Berejiklian told the Australian Broadcasting Corps television network. I'm hoping what we've seen in the last few days won't be repeated frequently over the summer, but it could, she warned. Our weather experts tell us they're expecting conditions worse than what we've seen in quite a number of years. I'm Christopher Wells.
Nigeria's Boko Haram jihadist rebels have reportedly claimed responsibility for the abduction of hundreds of students in an attack on a boys' school in northern Katsina state. More than 330 students are missing from the government-signed secondary school in Kankara after gunmen with assault rifles attacked their school Friday night. Many of the more than 600 male students were able to escape during the attack while the police engaged in a gunfight. Boko Haram has in the past abducted students from schools. The most serious school attack took place in April 2014 when more than 270 schoolgirls were abducted from their dormitory at the government secondary school in Chibok in northeastern Borno State. Two of Britain's most influential journals for healthcare and medical professionals jointly called on the government today to scrap plans to relax COVID-19 restrictions for 5 days around Christmas or risk overwhelming the health service. In what was only their second joint editorial in more than 100 years, the British Medical Journal and the Health Services Journal said the government should be tightening the rules rather than allowing 3 households to mix over 5 days. Britain has recorded 64,402 deaths from COVID, the second highest number in Europe. 11 elderly people with mobility issues died after being trapped in a burning retirement home in the early hours of Tuesday in the Russian region of Bashkortostan in the Ural Mountains. The fire was reported in the village of Ishbuldino, the Emergencies Ministry said in a statement, and was put out in 3 hours. 4 residents managed to escape the blaze. This year has seen 2 important environmental milestones being marked: the signing of the Paris Climate Agreement and the publication of the Pope's encyclical Laudato Si on the care for our common home. As the new year approaches, preparations are underway for the COP26 summit in Glasgow. Speaking to Vatican News, the director of CAFOD, Christine Allen, said this coming year is shaping up to be a crunch one for climate talks.
We were all talking at the beginning of this year that 2020 was the super year with the conferences on biodiversity, G7 and climate. And yes, that's all just basically being pushed back. I mean, what this year has shown us is that actually we can have a world where carbon emissions are taken seriously and are reduced. So we've seen that, and we've seen a growth of power and momentum in tackling climate change. So yeah, this year will be a really crunch year because, of course, we're getting to the point at which if we don't take urgent action on reducing emissions, we will find it incredibly difficult to actually hit our targets that we all signed up to. And we know that as a world we are off track. So it is critical. And, you know, one of the things that I've been saying this year is that Pope Francis has given us a roadmap in both Laudato Si and more recently in Fratelli Tutti. He gives us a roadmap for how we can rebuild a better society. And that is what people are absolutely desperate for. I hear it all the time, that people are saying, but, you know, it doesn't have to be like this. Why are we in the mess we're in? And Pope Francis has offered us that roadmap. It's not a political manifesto, but it's a set of principles and a way of seeing the world. And we've got to make sure that our voices are heard by politicians in making sure that those principles are put into practice, particularly in this year to come.
The Deputy Governor of the Afghan capital of Kabul was killed on Tuesday in a bomb attack on his car as he went to work. There was no major claim of responsibility for the blast that killed Mahbubullah Mohebi as he was travelling with security guards. 2 guards were wounded. Security officials said a magnetic bomb had been placed in his car. Representatives of Christian churches and other faiths in the southern Pakistani city of Karachi have come together in a pre-Christmas celebration. Cardinal Joseph Coots, Archbishop of Karachi, invited them to the event at St. Patrick's Cathedral to celebrate harmony, peace and solidarity in the spirit of Christmas. Robin Gomes has more.
We should not only gather to celebrate, but we have to be united in each other's difficult times, Cardinal Joseph Coots of Karachi told the gathering. He recalled that in 2015, Catholics had invited the country's religious leaders for a meeting after the attack by Islamic State terrorists on the Ismaili community that left 45 people dead. We invited religious leaders and requested them to pray for the victims and their families, he said, noting the event was widely covered by international and national media. The 75-year-old cardinal said that the event became a source of unity for us all at a time when there was a lot of terrorism and unrest in Karachi. Cardinal Coots said the message of peace and harmony must be spread at grassroots level for real change. Ilama Ahsan Siddiqui, General Secretary of Al Baraka Welfare Trust International and the Interfaith Commission for Peace and Harmony, urged all present to build peace and fraternity, starting with small steps, which he said can bring about a big change in our society. This, he said, can be done only when all are united and denounce hatred and announce love. Mangla Sharma, a Hindu lawmaker, said initiatives for the equal rights of minorities should be organized and backed by all. Father Saleh Diego, the director of the National Commission for Justice and Peace, hailed the efforts towards interdenominational and interfaith unity. We all, not only Christians, have to unite and stand together with Hindus and Sikhs for the cause of peace and justice, he said. Our Lord is the Lord of justice, and everything is possible if we are united and stand together. Pastor Suleiman Manzoor, chairman of Rafa Mission International, invited Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, Parsis and other communities to join a Christmas rally on Sunday, December the 20th, which will start at the Christian Cemetery and end at Karachi Press Club. I am Robin Gomes.
Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, is sharing his hopes for Christmas 2020 and offers words of encouragement to those who are suffering because of COVID-19. In an interview with Vatican News, Cardinal Tagle, who also serves as president of Caritas Internationalis, recalls his personal experience of being infected by COVID and emphasizes the importance of welcoming the birth of Jesus as a moment of hope and rebirth for all of humanity.
I think the problems and the sufferings of this year will even help us focus on the message of hope in Christmas. And what is it? It is God who comes to us. And we will never be alone. Emmanuel, God with us. And other things that are with us will disappear. The investments, the achievements, the gifts, no? Our money will all disappear. All these things that we have associated with Christmas may disappear. But Jesus who comes as one of us, God with us, will remain with us forever. So that is our hope.
You were personally infected with COVID. What would you say to those who discover to be positive and experience a condition of fear and uncertainty?
Yes, first of all, I want to tell them that they have a brother in me, someone who knows, especially the internal, the turmoil, the anguish, the fear. I would like to tell them and all those who will be listening to this that we could be surprised by something like this. You don't expect it. So what the gospel says, you do not know when it is coming, when the Lord will come. So be prepared. So I hope we, all of us, could live every moment, every day of our lives at peace with God, at peace with our neighbors. Let us not postpone the good thing that we could do now. Little acts, a simple act of kindness, a little act of justice, a simple phone call, a smile, a remembrance, because you might not have another chance to do it.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, be sure to check out our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also catch the latest updates on our Facebook page or on Twitter. Many thanks goes to Gustavo Messina in the studio in the Vatican. Thank you for joining us.